Hello, boys and girls. Today, we're going to be rounding numbers to the nearest 10 and nearest 100. The objectives are, I can round numbers to the nearest 10, and I can round numbers to the nearest 100. Let's start by doing a number line. To round a number, the first thing we need to know is how to locate numbers in the number line and locate the benchmark numbers. The benchmark numbers are the numbers at the beginning and at the end of the number line. In this case, let's start with a 10. If this is my first number, I'm counting by ones, the number at the end of my number line is going to be 20. And now it's time to find the midpoint. The midpoint is the number right in the middle of the two benchmark numbers. In this case, it's going to be 15. And to make more accurate for you to find which one is the closest 10, we're going to find the other missing numbers in our number line. In this case, the numbers I just placed on the number in here. Now, let's pretend that I want to find where the little kitten is. I know the kitten is in number 11, but I want to round this number to the closest 10. If you look, it's very easy to find it because the closest 10 is the one at the left, the 10, actually, in this case, because it's the closest number. In the other hand, 20 is really far from the kitten, so we cannot round 11 to 20. So I can tell that 11 rounds to 10. If I move the kitten to the next spot, still it's closer to the 10 than to 20. So 12 rounds to 10. If I move it one more place to the right, it's going to be in 13. And still 13 is closer to 10 than to 20. So I can tell again that 13 rounds to 10. And the same is going to happen with 14. 14 is closer to 10, so it rounds to 10. Now, what happens if I place this little doggy in the number 16? Now, if you can notice, 16 is closer to 20 than closer to 10. So when I round 16 to the closest 10, it's going to be 20. So I can tell that 16 rounds to 20. The same is going to happen for 17. It's going to round to 20. 18 is going to round to 22. And 19 is going to round to 22. But what happens when I have the point I want to find on my number line is an equal size from the 10 down to 20. So if you can notice, the distance is equal. So how am I going to round 15? Does it round to 10 or does it round to 20? Well, the rule basically says that when you are right in the middle, point, you're going to round to the greatest 10. So the middle point is going to round to 10. Now let's apply this to a problem. Before that, let's just find the rule to round to the closest 10. So when the numbers finish in 1, 2, 3, or 4, then they're going to stay in the same decade. That means they're going to round to the 10s because that's the decade we are in. We're in the 10s, not in the 20s. But what happens when the number finishes in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? Then the rule says that when we finish in these numbers, we're going to move to the next decade. In this case, it's going to be number 20. So let's apply this time this to a problem. So let's round from 163 to the nearest 10. The first thing I have to do is find the benchmark numbers. Because I'm trying to round to the nearest 10, that means the hundreds are going to stay the same. So all benchmark numbers are going to start in 400. Now, because I'm rounding to the nearest 10, the only thing I'm going to change is the tens. So the 10 is going to be here, 6, but the next 10 is going to be a 7. So this is going to be a 7. And to make these numbers right, the first 10 is going to be 60, and the second 10 is going to be 70. So let's place those numbers here. 60 and 70. I can prove it because if I have 460 is my first decade, if I add 10 more, it is going to be 470. Which are the two numbers I have, 460 and 470. Now my job is to locate the midpoint and locate 463 in the right spot. So the mid number is going to be 465, and 463 is going to be right here, 463. Just by looking at the picture and remembering the rule that says if my number finishes in 1, 2, 3, or 4, I stay in the same decade, which is this one. So if you notice, my number finishes in 3, here it is. So I'm going to stay in the same decade, which is 460. So I can tell now that 460 rounds to 463 rounds to 460 because it's closer and is way farther away from 470. So my sentence is going to tell 463 rounds to 460. Now this time let's round to the nearest 100. Remember, the first thing we have to do is find the benchmark numbers. If my first number is 200 and we're counting by hundreds, the next 100 is going to be 300. And as we did before, we need to find the midpoint. The midpoint in this case is going to be 250 and applies the same as in the previous example. We had to find the missing numbers in our number line. Because we're counting by hundreds this time, the pattern is skipping by tens. So let's find again the little kitten. If you notice again, the little kitten is closer to 200 and it's farther away from 300. So I can tell that 210 runs to 200. The same applies for 220, it's still closer to 200. So 220 runs to 200. 230 rounds to 200. And 240 rounds to 200. Why? Because they're closer to the 200 than to the 300. Now, let's do the same with the little dog. The little dog is closer to 300 than to 200, so I can tell that 260 runs to 300. 270 is going to do the same. 280 is going to do the same. 290 is going to run to 300. And 290 is going to run to 302. We'll have the same case, 250, just because it's right in the middle and has the same distance to 200 and to 300, and the distances are equivalent or equal, then the number is going to round to the greatest 100, which is 300. So 250 is going to round to 300. Now let's do the same. Let's look at the rules again. So we have the same number line, and remember, in this case, if you notice to the number next to the hundreds, because we're rounding to the hundreds, the next number to the 100 is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Remember, those numbers tells me, in this case, that I had to stay in the same 100, because the number placed in the tens are these 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to round to the 200 in this case. Now, in the other side, if the numbers finish in 5, 5 tens, 6 tens, 7, 8, and 9 tens, then these numbers in this case are going to move to the next 100, which is going to be, in this case, 300. Now let's run the same number, 463, to the nearest 100. The first thing we have to do is to find the benchmark numbers. Because we have 400s here, my first benchmark number is going to be 400. Now, if I add one more 100, so 400 plus one more 100, 0 ones, 0 tens, and 500s, that's going to be my second benchmark number, which is 500. Now, remember, we have to find the middle number, and between 400 and 500 is going to be 450. So that means that the next space in my number line is going to be 460. And 463 is going to be somewhere around this area. So this is going to be 463. Now, if you notice, 463 is farther away from 400 and it's closer to 500. So I can tell now that 463 rounds to 500. Now let's check again on the rule 2, just to double check. Remember, if we're trying to find to the 400, we look for the 10, and the 10 is a 6. So 6 says that 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 moves to the next 100. So the next 100 after 4 is going to be 500. So I'm sure that this is my answer. Our challenge for today is to round this number, 625, round it to the nearest 10 and to the nearest 100, and the number 153, round it to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100. See you next time, guys. Bye.